support.
Like I told Tracy, like if it looks like I'm going to mess up, just interrupt right at that point.
All right. Let's see where we are here. All right, we are live. So, to everyone out there, welcome to round 2 of our Chopping with the Stars series. Today we have Jonathan Weber, Dr. Jonathan Weber from Michigan State University, who's going to be leading today's session. He's marched with the Santa Clara Vanguard, taught numerous groups, of course, is most well known at this point for his work with the Michigan State Drumline. So without much further ado, I'm going to turn it over to him so he can get this show on the road.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy, and I'd like to thank you and UNA for having me here. Dr. Wiggins and I have now, I just realized this, have known each other for 30 years, which is a really long time, but Tracy's a great musician and a great friend. I'm grateful to be here. I've had the pleasure of getting to work with the UNA drumline a few times in the past. It's always been great, and I got to watch the snare auditions this year, and I'm really looking forward to what you can do this year with the talented drumline, at least what we hope that we can all do. Tonight I'm going to briefly talk through a few ideas and then try and get everybody playing, so I hope you have your sticks and pad ready, and we'll do a variety of different things in different levels. So. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask on the chat. And we're in various formats right now on Zoom and Facebook and YouTube, I believe. So Dr. Wiggins will try and help me out watching the chat and all that. But please feel free to ask any questions while we get going on this. So the first thing I just wanted to talk about is just goals and what it is that you're trying to do. For me, I've been playing for a really long time now, and it's about music, of course. So it's trying to develop kinesthetic and cognitive awareness through sound. In other words, like knowing what I'm shooting for, what am I trying to sound like, how do I use my muscles and everything to achieve those sounds, and that's what we're going to try and do tonight. Knowing what sound you're going for is an incredibly important thing, and sometimes I think people practice without necessarily knowing exactly what they're doing. They're just, okay, I'm just going to practice. And so you want to make sure you're aware of that. The different ways you do that, number one is just listening a ton and listening to what it is that you're wanting to do. If you're wanting to be a part of the UNA snare line, you're going to listen to that a lot. If you're going to listen, if you want to be part of the Blue Devils, making sure that you're doing a ton of listening and watching and making sure you do that. Another way you're going to make sure you know what sound you're going for, of course, is doing something like this, doing something like getting a private teacher. If you can get a teacher who's done it before, that's really what you want to try and do, is get somebody who's done it or something like it, and then you can use that person to start to achieve your goals as well. And then other things like metronome, recording yourself, there's all sorts of tools that you can use to make sure that you're getting to what it is that you're going for. The other part is like the physical aspect of it and how to move to achieve the accurate rhythms, good sound quality, consistency, and the thought process that you try and do to get there. It's really important that whenever you practice, you're very aware of what it is you're doing, that you can make this. Drumming is an incredibly intricate sort of muscle control exercise. So you want to be very aware as you're going through all that and making sure you're paying attention to all that. I'm going to proceed this also. There's a lot of people who are doing these presentations. It's really cool to be on with this. I watched Taha last week and was really enjoyed his presentation. There's a lot of good ways to do things. So as I do this, hopefully you can grab some of these things that you like, but you'll see some different approaches, and that diversity is really a great thing. So Um, Hope you enjoy this, but there's lots of good ways to do stuff. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is breaking down chunking a rudiment or an exercise.
Yes, sir.
And the first thing I'm going to say, and this is something I'm sure that you've heard from a teacher at some point, and that is to practice slow. It's really absolutely one of the most important things you can do to achieve a high level of performance. And by doing it slow and doing it with the details, you're just going to get so much better at a much more efficient rate. I'll play one example here, and just making sure you get the details. There's a piece I wrote for the MSU drumline called X, and the snare solo, the first measure is not the most intimidating measure, but it's just a diminuendo 3 counts, where it's 2 counts of 16th notes, and 1 count of 8th notes. And doing that, and by playing it slow and making sure you get all of those details, that is really going to help you get that. I've been evaluating auditions for the last 3 days at MSU, and while some of the other stuff is, is a little bit more technical in nature, the first measure actually probably has more stuff that's wrong with it. So you're just, practicing playing things that are slow and getting all the details while you do it is something you just want to do. We'll take some things slow. We'll take things a little bit quicker as we go through this process today. The second thing I want to talk about is chunking. And I usually talk about this in the clinics I've done in various spots, but chunking is just taking a small part of something, of a larger part, and then you're trying to assimilate that information, combine that information so that it becomes one thing. It's the reason why you practice scales. It's the reason why you practice rudiments, is trying to get the idea of make something become one idea. If I tell you 7 things, 7 bits of information, it becomes a little tricky. If I go up to a snare line and I say, okay, your left hand on this part, your grace note's too high. Over here, your right double's too high. Over here, your rolls are too wide. Then it becomes a lot to process and a little bit too much. So you're trying to make everything become one idea. Different ways that you can do this, for example, is maybe take 1 note at a time. So practicing slow is a good way to isolate something, but practicing 1 note at a time. So say I'm doing a flam drag. I can do a flam and a note, flam and a diddle, a flam and diddle and another note. And then, so you're just doing 1 note at a time, again, making sure all those details are right. Singles is another one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you can just add 1 note at a time and make sure that the process is happening consistently. Another thing is just doing 1 element at a time. So the 1 hand on it at a time. If I'm playing a flam accent, that's 1 part. And just breaking it down that way. So I think those are 2 things I really recommend in terms of chunking. The other thing I wanted to mention about kind of breaking things down that help you, one is singing. Just by show of hands, who are people on Zoom, how many of you sing? Like you're looking at your music and you sing through the parts? Does anybody do that? Okay, yeah, I see that from a lot of you. It's an incredibly important thing to do. I really, really recommend it, just getting it in your voice. We're going to do just a little bit of that later, so that'll be fun to do. And then, which I mentioned earlier, is the listening, and just trying to make sure you're listening to all the right stuff. It's interesting right now because I think as much as anything I listen to is what the 3-year-old listens to. So I listen to a lot of Perry Grip and Baby Shark and things like that. So anyway, we're going to do some drumming now. So let's just start. If you guys have stick and pads, let's just start with doing some nice big eights with double stops. So we're just going to play, we wanted to be on eighth notes. So 1, 2, ready, and. Then let's go ahead and play piano. Trying to make sure that the sound is very consistent. Back to fortissimo, 2, ready, and. Fantastic. That's a great way to get started, I think, doing those double stops. Your hands want to do the same thing, so by doing that, it really helps your left hand and your right hand be more of the same. I'll talk just briefly about my approach, and like I said, Taha did a bunch of that last week, talking about different points of your fingers and different things you're using. So I won't go into as much detail, but I'll just say that for me, I'm trying to get a decent amount of weight so that I get a nice sound out of the drum without having to like try and hit it hard, for lack of a better term. So it's going to be some finger, it's going to be some mostly wrist for me on my normal stroke, and then the arm. And of course it's going to vary some depending on what it is you're playing and what it is you're doing. But if I'm trying to play piano, for example, at a slow tempo, I want to have a nice full sound. So I'm getting weight in the stroke by using my arm. Versus if I just use my wrist and fingers. Can you guys hear the difference on the Zoom here? Can you guys hear that? So that's what I'm trying to do, is achieve this kind of fuller sound by using this lever. So you have, of course, your fingers, your wrist, and your arm. You're going to be using them for different things, but using my arm is going to help a lot. So let's try that piano dynamic and see how good, how nice, big, relaxed sound you can get. Staying open, relaxed, letting the stick vibrate, like Taha talked about last week. Go ahead and do double stops, piano. Good. Something that's incredibly important to do is just achieve that low end sound and get that happening. So that's our first little tiny warm up. The second thing we're going to do is stick control. I think most people, or I'll say a lot of people, play it this way, which is the way I did this way back when in Santa Clara. It's the same patterns. I know UNA plays it basically the same, and Michigan State plays it basically the same. So this is a good exercise to do. We're just going to play stick control, and let's go ahead and play a nice forte dynamic. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, and we're ready. And. Again, ready, and. Very good. I mean, I can see here, I obviously can't hear very much, but everything looks good so far. We're going to go ahead and try the same thing at a piano dynamic, okay? So the same things that we talked about earlier on the other, we're going to try and do here. It's nice full sound. Okay, there. Let's go ahead and start together. 1, 2, 1, 2. One more time and go.
Hey, John.
Yes.
Yeah, this seems like a good time to interject this. We have a question from all of our friend, Mr. Neil Flum.
Haha. Hey, Neil.
And Neil says, in the 1992 SCV battery, you marched with some individuals who became prominent educators and performers in the world of marching percussion, such as Colin McNaught and Nick Angelis, to name two. Did you learn anything from your fellow performers that you use in your teaching?
Absolutely. I mean, so there were a lot of people in that drum line back at that time. The teacher actually at Santa Clara was the guy who teaches Blue Devils now, Scott Johnson, who is a great teacher and great player. The snare tech was Kevin Murray, who wrote Diddy and taught the Blue Devils for a while. Murray Gussick, who's written a whole bunch of things and a fantastic player. Jeff Queen is an old friend and played a lot together over the years. And so, yeah, there's some great players and great teachers in that group. I learned a lot from all of them. Walter Powell was the section leader of snares, and I learned a ton from him. I learned a ton from Colin and Nick. And you know, one of the cool things is that we had different backgrounds. Nick and Colin are from the East Coast, and they had done a lot of work with Tom Hannum, and so I learned some of that approach, and I learned a lot from Walt. And so, yeah, a lot about sound quality, a lot about using kind of larger muscle groups and getting a better sound. At that point, and those of you who knew me way back when, I could play really fast, which was cool, but it wasn't always the best sound. So yeah, I learned a lot from all those people. Yeah. Thanks, Neil, for the question. Anything else, Tracy?
Nope, that's it so far.
Fantastic. I'm going to jump to, we'll go a little bit faster on just the regular stick control. Let's try here at this tempo. Let's play it once loud, once quiet, and I'm going to throw a curveball at you guys. Okay, here we go. 1, 2. Piano. Okay, yeah, that's good. So that is, yeah, that looks good. The big thing is on that is really always working for your sound and trying for evenness. It's such a good exercise for so many different things. And that book by George Lawrence Stone, I'm assuming that most of you, because as I look, I know most of you are college percussionists. But if you don't know that book, really you can spend a lifetime working on just the first page of that book, let alone the entire thing. So it's a really valuable resource. Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to try and figure this out really quick. I'm going to do a thing called fill-ins, which I've done with some of you before, I believe. Do you guys all see the slide here? Fill-ins? Thumbs up? Yes? Okay, great.
Yep, we're good.
Okay. So when you do stick control, this is the first pattern that's not the alternating one, where you're just playing 3 right hands. And then you have a left hand note in there. And what the fill-in is just basically taking the right hand, the repeated notes, and you're going to fit a note in between them. So it'll look something like that. This is my fancy PowerPoint graphics. I hope you guys appreciate. But like as I'm doing this, and this is an exercise that I think is great for a lot of reasons. One is that if you use your right hand and just leave it here, and I play the left hand on a different surface, it should be the exact same all the way through. So if I do the second pattern, and I'll throw the whole thing up here. If I do the second pattern, my left hand should be exactly the exact same thing all the way through. I think that if the first time I did this, I discovered some inconsistencies with how open I was playing the rhythm, or I should say how crushed I was playing the rhythm, and it helped me open that up a little bit. So I know some of you have been through this with me, but let's try and maybe play this together. We'll do it. So can you guys read that? Is that big enough to see? It's going to start with just the check pattern. So on and so forth. So we'll start kind of slow here and play through this. The first measure on the third line, you can play, that's a groove measure. Just play something that grooves. It can be different than what's written there. So let's go ahead and play this nice forte dynamic. Again, striving for evenness and trying to make sure that the check pattern, the regular stick control, stays consistent as you go through it. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, ready, and. Cool. Everyone got it? Who? Raise your hand. Who played it? Who played it well? Who got it? All right, good. Let's take it just a little slower, perhaps. Okay, so that we can get it. Let's try it just a little bit slower. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and. Okay, that's good. So that's the general point of that. Let's go ahead and just once, we'll take it a little bit faster for those of you that feel comfortable with it. And we'll play just this one more time. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and. Good. So that's a good one to do. It's a good chop building exercise, and it's really open and relaxed, and you're trying to um, uh, basically get those rhythms down as well. It helps you apply everything that's in stick control. It is the exercises, of course, are not the end means of what you're trying to do. These are exercises, of course, to get application to other things that you're going to do musically. So this is, I think, a good application of this. There's lots of ways to use the stick control book. This is just one of them. So I wanted to throw that at you. Good. Do we have any questions right now? You guys are all back right now?
Yeah.
Any questions about
Yeah,
that?
no more have come up at the moment. Does anybody in the chat have a question right now about any of this?
I'm looking at the chat now, I guess. Let me see. Okay, Wayne has provided a link. Oh, of yeah, 92 Vanguard. Okay. Good. So let's,
Zach Melton is very bothered that you're not playing the ones. So he's wanting to know why not play the ones.
that's because that's what we do at least at MSU. We don't. Do you guys do that at UNA? You play the one counters?
No, we don't.
No.
We
Yeah, I
play the
guess
same
that's
version.
why. It's because that's what we do. So you can break that down. You know how you play 4 counts of, then you play 2 counts on the after the groove. Then you can play 1 count. I haven't done that for a while. I'm glad I didn't mess it up. So that's what you could do if you wanted to, and you could obviously do that with the fill-ins as well. The next thing I want to do is just talk a little bit about paradiddles and an approach to that I think works pretty well. So we're going to start with just playing it just like with stick control. So if you're reading the book, is it number 4? Is that the paradiddle? So you just play the check pattern or pattern number 1 out of the book. Then you're just going to play paradiddles and play them very evenly. So let's go ahead and do that twice. You got a check pattern, and then you got paradiddles. Like that, okay? Here we go. Let's go. Let's just keep it there. 1, 2, and 1, 2, and ready, and. Two, again, go. One more time, ready, and. Good. That one is one. How many of you hear in some sort of inconsistency when you play it? Is everyone's paradiddle sound perfect? Okay. The most common problem on that is crushing doubles, which is a common problem. I mean, it's something I fight to. I try and avoid doing. And when you're playing a paradiddle, the tendency is to have something that's like this. If you hear that and you're playing, then you're getting some. The doubles are staying a little bit too tight together, and you want to open those diddles up. So you're thinking about keeping that second note of each one really, really open and connected into the next paradiddle. So that's something I really recommend doing. I've got a couple things that are going to help with that, hopefully. If one thing, let's just do this first. Let's go ahead and play. We're going to play it quiet now. Same thing we just did, okay? 2, ready, and. Try and get a lot of weight. I can see some people just playing, here. Try and get a lot of fullness to your sound. It'll make it so much easier to play as a group. You're thinking also about the venue that most of us are playing in is a stadium, so you're trying to make sure that your sound is going to project and you get a full snare response as well, or a full drum response out of whatever drum it is you're playing. So 1, 2, one more time. 1, 2, ready, and. So now we're going to take the paradiddle and play 1 down and then 1 with an accent. Go 1, 2, ready, and. 2, ready, and. Cool. So one of the things that I'm going to talk about is also displacing something to make it so that you're playing whatever note is weak. You want to draw attention to that. So we've already said that the weakest note is usually the second note of the double. So this might be a little tricky for some of you, but I'd like to try it. And that is that you're going to start the paradiddle on the E count so that the second note of the double is actually on the downbeat. Does that make sense? So you're just going to start. Let's try that. Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2, and ready and go. 2, 1, 2, right and play. And 2, one more time. 1, 2, right and go. That is a good thing to do. We can obviously slow it down. We're trying to stay, I'm going to try and cover a certain amount of things, so staying on a schedule here, but we could spend a lot of time just breaking that down and trying to make sure that that note, that double, stays right on the downbeat. Let's go ahead and play
Hey,
the
John,
measure on the downbeat, but play it a little faster. Yes?
one real quick question from Olivar's friend, Robbie Green,
Yeah.
is do you have other variations with dynamics that you use for stick control and the singles added variations?
I mean, nothing like a variation that we typically do or anything like that. I mean, we just play it usually quiet or that, but we have obviously things you can do to be creative. And individually, I'll just do something that does a crescendo over the course of a measure, or diminuendo over the course of a measure. That's a really good question and a good idea of doing something that gives you, again, some more musicality. And applying another thing to the basic idea of it.
Okay, cool.
Cool. So let's go ahead and just do that same thing. Paradiddles down, and then with the accent, you should have a really consistent sound. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and 2, ready, go. Okay, so that's a good one. And one way to attack paradiddles, I know there's a lot of different things out there. That's just another one. Let's try and do some paradiddle-diddles, and we're going to start with just doing those, but we're going to do them as triplets. Let's maybe go a little slower. We're going to go just even a little bit slower. But that's, when you're playing paradiddle-diddles, the same concept exists, is that I've seen so many people and over the years where the paradiddles, instead of having this consistent rhythm, the right double crushes in, and they have that sort of sound. So It's really about keeping that open. So let's just start actually. Two, just triplets and 4 paradiddles. Ready and go. Two, 1, 2, ready and go. So basically, it's like stick control. You're trying to make it all even. Then you can play the exact same thing. At a piano dynamic. Once you get that, then you're going to add that. What we're going to do to start is actually kind of one of the chunking ideas, which is to break it down a little bit. If we're playing it, we're going to stop on the 8th note. So just right, left, right, right, and we're going to leave the last left double out. And that's going to make sure that we place that right double exactly where we want it to be. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 4 of these. 2, ready, and now add the left double in. You're just making sure that the right hand stays exactly in the same spot. 2, ready, and play. 2, last time, and go. Good. That's the idea. Now the other thing I want to do with this is we're going to break it down a little bit and just a pure chops sort of muscle development, and that is to play what one hand does, which is, let's go ahead and try that. Let's do, just play it infinity until we stop. Okay, so you gotta go ahead and join in whenever you're ready. That's what your right hand plays, or the initial hand plays when you play a paradiddle-diddle, right? You can change the heights if you want. Play it all up, but that's the typical way. The other hand does this. It's the double on the beat. So if I'm playing this, right, that's what you're doing with the left hand while you do this. So let's just go ahead and play. Cool. So that is what you're doing when you're playing a paradiddle-diddle, and your left hand is probably going to need some work on that. Let's try just a little bit faster. That's too fast. Let's go up maybe here. Right hand. Try not to slam the accent. Stay very relaxed on it. Let the stick rebound and vibrate. Left hand. Anyone's left hand getting tired? Anyone? No, we're all good? Okay, double stops. We're going to go to left hand. Paradiddle-diddles. Left. Okay, that's a good one. You can do that a lot and work on it and get like your hands really working on it. And like I said, you could change the heights on it. The big thing, like I mentioned, is trying to stay very relaxed, making sure that you're not slamming the accent, holding on the stick too tight. You're just basically playing a nice relaxed stroke and then a double and trying to control that, okay? Is there any questions on any of that? Do we have any other questions at the moment, Dr. Wiggins?
Not at the moment.
Okay,
I think everybody's chops are too burned to type right now.
I hope that we're doing some work, okay, that you guys are getting this out you want. If you have anything that you want to do, just please let me know. Good. So I said we would do a little bit of singing, so we'll go on for now unless there's anything. I'm looking, there's nothing. We'll do a little bit of singing. We're just going to do a little bit of triplet grid. Huge fan of this. Everybody here know triplet grid? Raise your hand if you've done that before, if you know triplet grid. So we're going to just do this. You're going to click your sticks on the beat. Okay? And then we're just going to sing it. Just like that, okay? Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, sing. Sorry, I ran out of breath there, but that's the idea. And that, if you can't do that, if you're struggling with that, you want to spend some time making sure you know exactly how that works. Slowing it down, of course, would be fantastic. The hardest one for most people, including myself, is the second pattern where you're singing. So you want to spend time on that and feeling comfortable with it. I'm not exactly sure the reason, except for maybe it's just because a shuffle is so prominent and that third beat is so prominent in blues and rock, swing. So that second note is the one you want to work on. It like a bomba is a Cuban style that has a lot of that, you know, that second note on it. And so, but you want to make sure that that second partial of the triplet that you feel comfortable on it. By clicking your sticks, it's another way of kind of reinforcing. Obviously, if you're marking time to it, it's great. But if you can click your sticks and sing it, it reinforces that idea. So let's just go ahead and play triplet grid at that tempo. Again, different ways about it, but you want to make sure when you play that low end that you have a really nice full sound. You're not just getting. You want that. You want to make sure you're focused on that low end and making sure you're getting a really nice full sound that doesn't change after you do the check. And it's really easy to play the check pretty well and then to change it a little bit when you start adding accents. So just to advise everybody to take a good strong look at that. Let's go ahead and play check triple grid. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, and. 2, one more time, 2, 3, Good. Now, how many of you have been to that? I don't even know how much that people go. Snare Science. Has anyone been to that Snare Science page? So there's a guy named Brad Halls who later on you're going to have a visit from Wayne Bovenschen will be doing one of these, and they're good friends. Brad is a former snare drummer at Michigan State and also with the Blue Devils, and used to teach the Cavaliers some. But he's done a really cool grid thing there on that page. I'll see if I can share this on the chat real quick. I'll put this up here so that you can see it. And I don't know if Dr. Wiggins will do that. It's on the Zoom chat there. But if you, it's basically a grid generator so that you can click on a button and it'll play Flam stationary, or it'll do Flams moving with the accent. So if I want to play this exercise and get so that I can play any sort of triplet variation, I can play it where I play the Flams with the accent. I can move it so that the Flams stay on the downbeat. I can play diddles, you know. I can play accents with diddles. I can play diddles on the downbeat. And by doing that, you're figuring out all of the different variations that are possible. So if you ever see it in music, then you're able to do it. So let's try a couple of these variations now. And like I said, for your resource, I put a link there, which is really cool, from Brad Halls. And let's go ahead and play with just Flams on the accent. Just that, okay? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and. My bad. 2, 1, 2, ready, and. Sorry about that. So let's do another one, which is putting the Flams on the downbeat. Okay, maybe we'll slow it down just a touch. So you're putting, and I think probably most of you on this page here have done that, but like I said, you can do that on the Snare Science page and see how it goes. And you're basically just keeping that Flam on the downbeat, then moving the accent to each partial of it. So like I said, that link will be a good one. Let's try it where you keep the Flam on the downbeat and see how we do. 1, 2, 1, 2, right, and. Okay, good. So that's great. Like I said, you can grid all sorts of stuff, and we'll leave that for now, but there's all sorts of options. I want to do some rolls. We're going to go just a little bit faster. We're going to do we're just going to do that, but we're going to start with just doing one hand at a time. Okay, make sure that the double is the exact width that you want it to be, that it's not too open. So we want to make sure that you're getting the double to be exactly 24th notes of 6 tuplets essentially at this speed. And then we're going to do the left hand. Then we'll do double stops. Then we're going to do the roll. Okay, really working for a good sound quality, making sure that you're getting that second note of the double up and you're getting a nice full double. Okay, so we're going to start right hand, left hand, double stops, alternate. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, right here. Again, 1, 2, right hand. Good. Now, in order to make your hands work a little bit more, we're going to do double stops 3 times and then alternate the roll. Okay? So instead of doing right and then left and then double stops, we're going to do double stops, double stops, double stops, and then roll. Okay? 1, 2, 1, 2, right, and. How many people feel that a little bit in your left hand specifically? It's a good thing to like really try and get your hands more even and really iron that out. So a good way to go about that. And you'll notice like your hands will flam pretty easily if your left hand is different than your right, which happens I think to a lot of people. So just try and when you do double stops like that, it's a way of kind of almost naturally trying to get your hands to do the same thing. Good. Any questions? I think we can maybe do 1 or 2 more things and then we'll kind of wrap it up for questions, but we're good, Dr. Wiggins? Okay, so I'm just going to talk about breaking down a Flam accent and then some hybrid rudiments a little bit. I mentioned earlier, if you're doing a Flam accent, maybe we should slow down just a little bit. We do that together for those 2, ready, and. Good, you're trying again. Try and use make sure you're using your wrist and a little bit of arm on that. You don't really want to be using too much finger. You want to use, and not this device, but. Good. So if you're playing a rudiment called a cheese, you're going to be putting a diddle on the flam. And when you isolate that, one hand does this. So what we're going to try and do is play 4 of these. And 2, 1, 2, ready, and flam accents, diddles. Good. So now let's try double stop. So 1, 2. Good. So that is a good way to get that to be a little bit more even. We're going to do a flam drag now. It's a little bit more difficult in my opinion. And the diddle comes here. So you're putting the double at the end. So let's do 4 flam accents on the right, 4 flam drags on the right, 4 flam accents on the left, 4 flam drags on the left. You know, 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, and. Try double stops. 1, 2, ready, go. Cool. Guess I'm getting a little tired. I played the flam drags both times. Sorry about that. So it's supposed to be flam accents and then flam drags. Okay. Now that's good. If anybody have problems with that with the left hand, is that kind of difficult? Anybody? So that's something you can really do. And one thing is just doing those 3 notes is getting 3 notes that are with your wrist. And then using your fingers really to get that double out. And that's something that if you're already using your fingers, it's going to be hard to add more finger to get that out. And you're going to get a fuller sound by using that wrist and arm. So that should be really helpful in doing that. And you can practice that with the other hand just to make sure you're not changing the rhythm. Okay, let's go ahead and try the last one, which is a flam 5. Okay, so you've got okay, so you're getting a diddle and then four flam accents on each hand, and then 4 flam 5s on each hand. You got 1, 2, 1, 2. Cool. Double stops. Ready, and. Good. That is a breakdown that I think can be really helpful. I've seen a lot of people with the flam 5s, the rhythm distorts, and if you play this correctly, you can get that happening well. So isolating each hand and figuring out how that goes will get your muscles in better shape, and then you can check it on either hand. And it should be helpful as you're working on to get that, okay? Let's see, what time are we at now? Right at 7 o'clock. Maybe, who knows the exercise chugga chugga? Who knows that one? UNA people, do you guys know that one at all? No? It goes like this. Old exercise. I believe it's a Tom Float exercise. Anyway, it's nice because you have the ability to kind of put things in there. So it's flam accents and flams initially. Just play 2 of each. Let's try that much. Ready, and go. Good. Okay, try it one more time. 2, ready, and then you play 4. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. Okay, so okay, 1, 2, and ready and play. Cool. Then after that, you play the same thing and you add 2 more counts of flams at the end. So I'm going to play the entire exercise. Cool. We got it? Everyone got it? Okay, let's go ahead and try that. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready. Good. You can fill in different rudiments. So a flam tap, for example, instead of the flams. Let's go ahead and try that. We're going to do it about here. Sorry, I get the 8th note subdivision. Flam taps, 1, 2. Good. Let's try a different one. Paradiddle-diddles. 1. Cool. Let's try 3s. So you got 3s. 1, 2, 1. And then you can do a roll. So you got two, and 1, 2, 3, and go. And with that roll, one of my favorite variations, and since we're kind of, this is chopping out, is playing singles. So alternating the roll in the singles. Let's go ahead and try that for anybody who wants to give it a shot. Okay, and 1, 2, 1. One more time, and 1, 2, ready, and okay. And then the other thing you can do is put in all sorts of flam stuff. And if, you know, one of the things, we'll finish with this, because if I'm looking to work out and have a chop session, and there's, you know, as Taha said last time, there's lots of ways to look at it. Is like, what is your goal and what is it you're trying to achieve? Chops doesn't have to do with just being like the craziest, fastest thing, but it has to do with being able to play what it is you want to play. Can I play something? And we worked on that some, right? With playing like the taps to have a really full sound. That's a certain kind of chops, and it's more applicable than really in most cases than being able to play really, really fast, is to be able to play with a really fantastic sound. So that being said, if I'm working to get my hands moving and to warm up, the ones that we'll do are what I kind of do a lot of times. This is chug it exercise, and we'll play it with chuddiches and inverts. So the flam accents are replaced by chuddiches, which is flams on the third note, and then you got inverted flam taps, okay? So you got here we go, let's try it. If anybody wants to give it a shot. Okay, and then let's see, go ahead and cheese it if you can do that. Everything, 1, 2, 1, 2. Cool, so that's a good one. And then we did the pataflaflas earlier. Go ahead and flam 5 everything. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2. Last time. Okay, so that is it, and like I said, that's something that you can use if you're just looking to really get at it. Does anyone have any questions?
Zach Melton has asked, what is the most challenging part of your current gig?
Currently, it's going through all the COVID stuff that we're doing. I mean, that's a pretty big challenge, is trying to figure out how we best help people in kind of the social distancing era. But that being said, I mean, one of the best parts of my job is getting the opportunity to do a variety of things. I've loved drumline my whole life, and I really have enjoyed working with the drumline at MSU, and then still doing rudimental drumming gigs and clinics and working with young students. So that's fantastic. And but also teaching in the studio, playing in orchestras, I'm doing a lot of salsa, and that I really love playing that music. So on drum set and congas. So I don't know. I mean, I think at times it is, as a percussionist, and Dr. Wiggins knows this as well as Professor Bovenschen, is that you're asked to do so many different things sometimes. That's at times what I think is the most challenging, is like trying to be so good at everything that you can help people. And the reality is you can't do everything, but you can certainly do your best to help people and help students. So I think that's what maybe it is just trying to manage a bunch of things that are all happening at the same time.
We got other questions out there? People that are on the Zoom right now or anything? If you have a question, hit the space bar and it'll unmute you.
Nothing? Everything was clear that we talked about. I think that if you do those things, I found those to be very helpful for me and for many students over the years. And a lot of what we did is stuff that we do at MSU. And if you are interested in any of that, and you're not familiar with it, you can go to you can just Google MSU Drumline. We have most of our exercises are online, so you feel free to kind of just look those up. And then there's some MP3s up there as well, and you can do that. We'll be going to a new format soon. We're trying to redesign the website, but for right now, it's what it is. But it's I think could be a valuable resource for some of you.
All right, Zach said he thought of something else to ask, so he needs to get in here and ask it real quick.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Weber and Dr.
Thanks,
Wiggins,
Zach.
for having everybody. And my camera isn't working, but this has been a great chop session. My question was like the trajectory of MSU's drumline. Like the kind of origin question in my head was like, I want to ask him what the best MSU drumline, what year was the best MSU drumline, but that can kind, I get that can kind of be a little bit, you don't want to play favorites, but like, can you maybe talk about the trajectory of the marching program specifically, and how, like, since your tenure there, you've seen it maybe go up and down, or has it been a steady incline, or could you speak to that?
Yeah, 2020 is going to be, of course, there are some groups that are different than others. I mean, and that, of course, that's in a way that's an impossible question. But I'll say this is that I'm very, very proud of the history of that organization that certainly predates me. There have been a lot of fantastic drummers in that group, and some of them I'm still connected with and great friends with that come from the 1960s. So there's alumni from the 1960s that still come back and play in the alumni band, and so I think that the 1950s, if I'm right, is really when there were people who were very interested in drum corps, which at that time was associated with, of course, it wasn't drum corps, but it was, help me out, Wayne, Tracy, it was affiliated with
VFW.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
The VFW. So, but yeah, and then there's been a strong history there all the way to the current day. So a lot of players who have been very involved in drum corps, and so yeah, I would say that there have been a lot of really great drum lines, and it certainly predates me, and I'm just very proud to have a part in it, in the history of the drum line there.
And like me with the thing here at UNA, your number one goal has probably been don't screw it up, because that's kind of what my mission has been here also, is don't mess it up.
Yeah. Cool. Is there anything else I can help with? I know you guys have a bunch of these, so I hope you guys enjoy the rest of them. You have some really great people to work with. I'm glad to be a part of it. So thanks again to Dr. Wiggins, and thanks all of you for allowing me to work with you.
Any final questions? Any final thoughts from you, Dr. Weber?
Yeah, as Wayne mentioned here, I'm sorry that we don't get to see you live, because we were set to do a clinic there through Yamaha.
Starting today.
Starting today, yeah, starting this week. So I'm really sorry that we don't get to do that, but I'm very glad that we got a chance to do something online here. And if you think of anything else, if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. You can send me an email, drumline@msu.edu, or weberjohn@msu.edu. If you forget those, they're on the MSU websites, so you can find it relatively easy. And I wish you guys the best. You're in great hands. You have a lot of good people coming in, and Dr. Wiggins is a fantastic educator. So you're good, and I'll be hopefully back to see the next people that are coming through here.
Real quick, Robbie Green comes in hot with a question right at the end.
Yeah.
He says, how do you refresh your perspective on the activity of drumming?
How do I refresh? That's an incredible question, and I think that really it comes through a lot of things. But one is just trying to be open to things that you see, whether that is first and foremost is getting to see fantastic groups, whether it be HBCU drumline, or whether it be the Blue Coats or a WGI group, and just getting a chance to see so many people who have so many great ideas and different things. That definitely refreshes everything. But it's also, I guess, drawing inspiration from other people. And as I've gotten into, for example, salsa drumming, getting to see and experience a whole new group of percussionists who do insane stuff, then it just inspires me. So I think that for those of you who are looking to be refreshed in some way, is just trying to be open to seeing and hearing new things, and then also realizing that trying not to be closed-minded about like this is the way to do it and the other ways are not good, but is to realize that there's so many different approaches that have worked great for different groups. And so, like I was saying, the first person who did it, I watched some of Taha's presentation last week, and I thought it was a different way of doing things than I had seen in some instances before. And so, yeah, it was really cool. But I think that's the answer to that question.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Weber, for doing this. It's been awesome. And the first 2 weeks of this, I think, have been great because they've been very different perspectives. And I think that's what's going to be cool about this whole series. Next week, we have a lot of ours buddy, Brett Kuhn, is going to be on. So he is the next go around. It's the same time, same place. As just a little bit of business to plug, we are offering all of these for free, but as John mentioned, we lost our Sounds of Summer Camp this year. So if you are interested in giving any kind of a donation to the program to offset that, we've posted the links for people to do that. And also feel free to check out UNA Percussion for all of your future percussion study needs. So we've got Brett next week, and then the week after that, we've got Glenn Crosby, which is also going to be pretty cool. So we want to thank all of you for checking this out. All of these are going to be posted to our YouTube channel, so you can find them easily. Also, Taha's is up there, and John's will be up there pretty quickly too. So if you want to go back and recheck out any of the concepts and stuff like that, it's very easy to do. All right, so again, thank you, John. We appreciate it. And there's a lot going on in the world. Everybody stay safe out there. All right, and do the right things for all the people all the time. All right, and all right. All right, cool. Thank you, everyone, for being involved with this.
We just on Zoom now, Tracy?
Not yet. I'm trying to figure out how to stop this.